Every day we get distracted by watching others post their photos, videos on social media, but we don't realize that all this time could be led for something bigger. Listening to a podcast in 2020 could be one of the best decisions ever made. You can consume information while exercising, being at work, going to a meeting, or just being with yourself. Consider starting your own podcast as well. The voice industry is going to be growing and growing from every single year.
Alright, so actually I wanted to talk about an interesting topic, which is focusing on podcasts. You know, in 2019, podcasts started to become really more and more popular. A lot of people are starting their own podcasts. A lot of people are listening to the podcast. And what I found the most interesting about that is podcasts could be one of the powerful marketing strategies. So in podcasts, you can really deliver a lot of value to your audience. And if you compare this to the social media platforms, right, to Instagram, to Facebook, to YouTube, when people listening to the podcast, they can do multitasking. So you can be, for example, right now I'm working, I can listen to the podcast, I can get this valuable information. I'm going and, for example, working out, I'm also listening to the podcast and getting more valuable information. So this is a great way to serve your audience without really interrupting them from another activities that they're doing. Podcasts are going to increase your loyalty, credibility. And what you can do in the podcast, you can actually attract your audience to use your products, to use your programs, or to buy your membership, for example. This is a really powerful way because podcasts could be distributed in multiple platforms. Could be on Spotify, could be on Apple Podcasts, could be on Google Podcasts. And I'm gonna talk about one of the effective ways in this video to start your podcast. And this is really exciting because 2020 is starting right now and you can record a podcast without really having a lot of equipment and a lot of things. You can just have your phone, using your phone, record those episodes and really dominate 2020 with the audio. So I want to talk about one of the ways you can start your own podcast. And it's important to think, first of all, your niche. You can't be just talking about everything. You need to really be niching down. Eventually, there are more and more podcasts are coming right now to the market. So you really need to niche down to what you're going to specifically talk about. That way, it's going to be more successful. And eventually, for example, you can connect your podcast towards your Instagram where you can tell people like, hey guys, take a screenshot of this podcast, share on your Instagram, I'm going to reshare it. So you can do a lot of call to actions and eventually you can grow your Instagram account by just having a podcast. In my case, my podcast is related about Instagram marketing, Instagram growth, and eventually this is what I'm focusing on. I'm also adding some sort of a section now which I'm talking about online courses, how you can build your membership sites, but this all is important because you need to really build your audience and really figure out your niche. So I want to show you some examples how you can start your podcast. There's an app called Anchor.fm. You can also go to and search it and go to the website. This is a free way how you can start your podcast. Literally $0 investment. You can just record your podcast right in the app, or you can just have your microphone, you can record them outside and import it to Anchor. So Anchor is one of the great ways to really launch your podcast in 2020. It's also free. You can see that Anchor is distributed into multiple platforms. So basically it goes to the Apple Podcast, goes to the Spotify, Google Podcast, Breaker, Overcast, and a bunch of others. So this is a really great way to start your podcast in 2020. And this is the most effective. So you can see the number of plays, you can see the analytics as well. You can go to your settings, you can just change your picture, cover page, information section. So honestly, this is one of the best ways on how you can start your podcast. And eventually you can see this is my collection of the podcast. So your podcast is going to be actually distributed to the Apple as well, and people are going to see it everywhere. So you can just record with your phone and then share it on Anchor, fill out the information, and your podcast is going to be featured on all the major platforms. So I want to show you how I usually record my podcast. Usually it happens in the car. I stay somewhere at the place, I turn off the air conditioning, and I'm using this simple setup because you don't need to have extremely good equipment. You can just simply start with having this microphone. This is external microphone, which is a Sennheiser. You can connect this to your iPhone. You can just start just by using your phone without any microphone, and then eventually you can upgrade it as well. Or you can use your laptop and you can just record with a USB microphone, right? There's a bunch of ways. For me, the most effective is having the phone and having the external microphone like this. So I do connect my microphone here, and I just wanted to show you this setup process. Then I go towards this app called Meta Recorder, and this app, basically you can record, you can see the microphone was identified, and you can record directly to your phone. Afterwards, I'm gonna go to the Anchor app and I'm gonna just create a new episode. You can see here, you're just gonna go and record maybe like this, right? Or I can just go, you can also trim here, there's a bunch of different ways what you can do, or I can just add from my current library, which I recorded from here. So this way it's very effective. You don't really need to have a lot of setup, because at the beginning the most important is to just get started with this. So that way I have my setup, I stay in the car, I keep it quiet, and then all my thoughts are coming, and then I'm recording this into this episode. So Anchor is really a great way to distribute your podcast and get recordings done very efficiently. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I'm excited for podcasts because for me, 2020 is going to be one of the main strategies to use the podcast. And for you, you should really focus and consider going all in on the podcast. I know you have YouTube, you have LinkedIn, you have Facebook, Instagram, but maybe if you can take podcast as your main strategy and put the next 3 to 6 months to really invest and produce the content in a podcast format, you're going to see a lot of outcome from it. So guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I'm excited about podcasting and hope to see you in the next one. Take care.